Good morning. It is Friday, May 10th. Welcome to the Awesemo Odds Show. I am your host, Jordan Frank. I am joined, as always, by Ben Rasa. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm all right. Happy Friday. Little bitter. My golf, not a good start today. Things were looking good, but we'll have to deal with that. Always a fun sweat during the show. Kentucky Derby's over. We're going to get into that, obviously. It's been a crazy week with all sorts of things. Champions League, those games were ridiculous. Just
Yeah.
sports all over.
Yeah, there's so much going on. And if anyone says that, we don't have a stake in the game or don't know what we're talking about, obviously you're always sweating something. I probably am as well. There's golf going on right now. We got some tennis. We got Federer playing right now. I got a little action on that.
Ooh.
So we are as primed as anybody to break all this down. So why don't we start? We did a lot last week, on the site and on the show, previewing the Derby. We did a full preview episode. We had a ton of content on the site. Let's talk just a brief kind of wrap up on the Derby. Where did you end up, sweating the Derby? What did your hat look like? What were your kind of general thoughts?
My mint juleps.
Mint juleps going into the race, and then of course, we'll talk about the infraction and what you thought about that.
So I sweated the Derby from a wedding, which was awful. And it couldn't have been the worst timing. I was trying to not personally delay anything, but I thought I could squeeze it in, and I just couldn't. It was even worse because I wasn't going to watch the race. The people next to me said, "Oh, Maximum Security just won the Derby." And I was like, "Oh, not ideal, but that was good." I certainly had him in some good things. I had him in some doubles. I had him in some exactas. So I figured I grabbed a nice piece. Then I heard he got taken down. I assume he got taken down to second. I figured, okay, that could still be good in some instances. Then after a while, I found out that he got taken way down. And that was
down as possible.
Just all the way. So it was crazy. Not the ideal situation for racing. I'm not a fan of that. I've seen a lot of horse races in my life. I didn't think he should have been taken down. I was really shocked that they did disqualify him.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. I want to flesh that out just here real quickly. So like you said, you have been watching horse racing your whole life, essentially. When you watch the replay around the corner there, I mean, he definitely changes lanes pretty dramatically. But in your mind, is it because it's the Derby you don't make that kind of determination, or do you think just in general, those things happen? It's gonna happen. I mean, he was in the lead. He was going wire to wire essentially. It was an incredible race that he ran, and to take that away is pretty brutal.
It was a combination of. It was the Derby, but I mean that in the sense not of like, oh, it's a huge race, so you don't take him down. There's 20 horses, so it's a little different. You're going to be crowded. There's horses all over the place. I think you got to give a little more leeway there. And the other thing I had a problem with is just the horse that was impeded did not claim foul. It was Country House claimed foul, and he was not affected by that. So it was, I get if, more power to them. You figure what's the worst that can happen. But it's not like he lost the race because of that. It had nothing to do with him. The horse that was impacted was not involved. So that part I didn't love. If the horse impacted would have claimed the foul, okay, I see the logic there. But that's not what happened.
Yeah, like you said, really it was War of Will who was affected the most.
Yep.
And I know talking with some people, they were saying that the stewards themselves should have raised the infraction.
For that, yep.
If it truly, was that level of an issue, and it does kind of put a damper on the Preakness, and we're going to talk more about the Preakness next week as we talk about it and preview it. But really, the big news already going into the Preakness is that Country House is not racing in the Preakness, and very quickly ends the pursuit of a Triple Crown, and a lot of the headlines from horse racing always revolves around whether somebody's going for the Triple Crown. So losing that kind of momentum is kind of a bummer. Since we both follow it closely.
Yeah, usually that's the Belmont is the one that's sweating that because it's a given that's obviously someone wins the Derby and that horse always runs in the Preakness. And then if they make that through, then you have the Triple Crown threat. But rarely, if ever, do we see a horse not try to complete the second leg. Obviously, I guess he's got a cold. I don't know. what's really going on
Shake
there.
it off. Come on.
Yeah, I
Give me a
mean,
sweat.
so a lot of horses, traditionally if you lose, a lot of trainers because it's a quick turnaround, they want to wait till the Belmont, get their horses ready. So not the best, but we will break it down. It's still a fun week of races coming up.
For sure. And like you said, we're going to talk about that next week
Definitely.
as the Preakness is next weekend. It does come quickly after the Derby, and that's part of it too, is really getting your horse ready for another, pretty grueling race only a few weeks later. Uh, Want to go through kind of an NBA playoffs update with you. We've had some pretty significant develops, certainly since we talked last week.
So bad.
Uh,
It's
I guess
awful.
I guess the easiest place to start is the one series that's over, and the one series that you and I probably couldn't have been more wrong on. And obviously, we're full transparency here, so I want to say that we both, part of our appeal and our kind of love for the Celtics was this high variant, high ceiling kind of team, and the converse is always true, right? When you have such a high ceiling and you're not reaching it consistently, there's such a bad floor for this team. And we saw that game one, they dominate, everything looks great, and then they just get trucked the next 4 games.
Dominated.
What did you think about that?
I was stunned. Not that obviously I was adamant that I really like the Celtics in this series, and even though I like them, I thought Milwaukee could hang in and easily win the series. But I was truly stunned after Game One to see how the Celtics were just not competitive after that. On every front, honestly, Brad Stevens just didn't seem to be able to adjust after the Bucks adjusted. Kyrie obviously was awful. And credit, I know Giannis is great, but I didn't think that he would stand out like that. He really, power to him. They had a good strategy, and he started to really make adjustments and not kind of just funnel into what the Celtics wanted to do for him. So really good for Milwaukee. I mean, clearly they are a deserving 1 seed who,
Yeah.
they're going to be a tough out. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I really thought that someone, clearly Kyrie did not step up, but I really thought there would be a second scorer from the Celtics who would be able to do more and certainly help Kyrie in some respects. And Tatum didn't have a great series. Horford had an amazing game one, and then not a great series. Hayward, not a great series. You could just kind of go down the line, and clearly there's dissension on that team. And as soon as their backs were against the wall, I mean, they just folded. And to lose those 2 games at home the way they did, like you said, I mean, it wasn't even very competitive. I mean,
No,
those games got out of hand quick. And I was looking at the live numbers, just trying to see whether I could get the Celtics at something pretty big. And, certainly as the margin grew, you could get a much better price. But at that point, I'm like, they're done. I mean, I wanted no part of this team. And, uh, you know, Milwaukee is going to be an incredible team going forward. And, that brings us to the other team, the other matchup in the East. You got Toronto and Philly. Last night's the last few games have been blowouts, kind of going back and forth, with the home team pretty easily winning. Game 7 is on Sunday, so let's talk about that series kind of quickly. I talked about how much I like Toronto. I'm still kind of sticking with my pick with Toronto, and we can get into it a little more. What are your thoughts going into Game 7? What have you seen the last couple games?
yeah, I mean these are the Raptors. I don't know about them, just in the sense of every time I think, man, they're really got it going, they seem to lax. This is a series. I do think they're the better team, but so many opportunities. And yeah, they have one game at home, and I do think they're the better team. They should win, but you never want to get into a Game 7 situation because there's no doubt the Sixers, if there's one thing they have, is crazy talent. Obviously, Embiid, with this sickness, and he's just been certainly ridiculously ineffective at times. Jimmy Butler shows flashes, Simmons shows flashes. The bench, they chip in here and there, not a huge factor. So it's a scary team, the Sixers, in terms of if you're looking at it from the Raptors' perspective. But all in all, they have the best player in Kawhi, and he is getting a little help from guys like, Lowry. He should get more, but when push comes to shove, I think the Raptors just find a way to get it done at home.
Yeah, I was surprised that Toronto didn't put up more of a fight last night
It
because
almost looked like they were saying, you know what, we'll take one game at home, and
yeah,
They didn't really have a killer instinct at all to try to steal that in Philly.
What do you think about this? It was kind of interesting that Kawhi was playing. He played a lot of minutes yesterday, and even when the game was out of hand, Kawhi was still in the game. And I heard a theory, curious your thoughts on this, that because he was so rested during the regular season, he kind of famously like has load management every other game. I think he ended up playing 55-ish games during the season. That their strategy, Nick Nurse's strategy, was to, if Kawhi was on the floor, that would require, either Butler or Simmons or Embiid to play more minutes, and that would affect them more than it would Kawhi. Is this crazy?
I mean, it seems a little crazy, but that's the only reasonable. I'm a huge advocate of like get your guys out
Me
as
too.
soon as like I'll put it like this, and we're gonna get to this game. If the Warriors tonight don't have it, get them. And not that I'm rooting for the Warriors, but like get Clay, Steph, and Draymond out of that game late. Like there is no reason to have Kawhi in there. All it takes is one fluky thing, and it's all over. So I really don't understand why coaches hold on. I think they hold on too long. It's a series. The goal is to win 4 out of 7, not to win that specific game in certain circumstances.
Yeah, yeah. I was very surprised. I don't know why he was in the game at that point, especially with someone who potentially, has an injury issue, at least over the last few years with Kawhi and kind of the mystery ailments, in his legs. That game is Toronto is a 6.5 point favorite, which is on Sunday, like I said. Uh, Pretty low total, 209 for the playoffs, but game sevens typically trend under, and definitely first half unders, just because teams come out a little tighter. That kind of goes like Toronto. I mean, you had a chance to end the series. Why risk going to a game seven, even though you're at home? But I'm with you. I mean, I like Toronto. I don't know if I'm going to lay 6.5 in this game. I'm probably going to wait and see what kind of live numbers I can get, or potentially bet some sort of money line. It's a little high for me right now. You leaning Toronto also?
I lean. I'm pretty much in line with you. I lean Toronto. I doubt that I touch this spread. Maybe I'll try to roll. Not that I like to do this too often, but maybe take a them and kind of another team in that minus 300 range. You get it about to minus 110. Because I do think Toronto wins this game, but I wouldn't be stunned to see it fall near this spread, and I don't want to be really messing around with that.
So would you combine it then with the other game seven? Why don't we transition to the West, and we'll talk Portland, Denver here before we get into the marquee Golden State Houston series. So that one, more competitive games, but kind of followed the same path with the home teams taking care of business, game 5 and game 6. I was feeling great about Denver. A couple days ago, last night, I thought they were going to give them a game, and they did. I mean, it was a much stronger effort than Toronto gave, and some of these other teams. What are you thinking going into game 7 there?
Yeah, that series oddly mirrors kind of the Sixers Raptors in a lot of ways. Another one though, Denver. You know what? You're one game. You're at home. I don't feel as confident that they're firmly the better team because Jokic is fantastic, but the guards on the Blazers are certainly a factor in that. Hey, there he is.
Hey guys,
talking a little Blazers basketball, but that's not the game. I'll put, just to bring it back to what we were just talking about. I'd be much more apt to roll the Rockets tonight into the Raptors. I think that I would be pretty stunned if that series ends in 6. So I'm more keen there. Blazers, I like the points in that game. I think it's going to be kind of a toss-up. So I see it around 5.5 on my screen right now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would take the points with the Blazers. Not saying they win the game, but I think it's a back and forth tight contest.
Yeah, I think it should be pretty tight. And I want to welcome Jason to the show. What's going on, Jason? We're just finishing up some NBA talk, and we left Warriors Rockets on the table here to talk about. And to the extent you've been following, we'll get your thoughts on Warriors Rockets here. But just to put a button on the Denver Portland series, we're talking about game 7, which is also on Sunday. Both of those games, the game 7s, they have an extra day built in. They wanted to.
What awful scheduling, by the way. So there's no games tomorrow.
There's no games tomorrow.
Doesn't
at
make
all.
any sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's all about those dollars. You got to get that Sunday prime.
Sorry, Mother's Day.
Money.
Mama B-Raz is not going to be thrilled because I have a busy day ahead of me on Sunday.
Moms are the best because they're understanding. They'll let you watch sports. They'll just kind of hang out in the background and root for your bets. I know that's
Ben, that's what you got. You got to get on the grandkids because that's how they totally just don't even care what you're doing.
No, I'm sure I'll be. Yeah, I'll give them a couple golfers to root for.
There you go.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, Jason. If there is one reason to have kids, I think that's maybe the only reason is
Good to know.
count them off
Life
on your
hacks.
parents. You can watch anything you want to watch. It works out really well.
No doubt about that.
So let's talk then just real quickly about Golden State and Houston. Obviously, it's what everybody's talking about is the KD injury and how that has affected the line and the series going forward. The line right now is 7.5. It opened at 5.5, jumped very quickly. 2 points is a big jump. I had seen a look-ahead line that was perhaps about 3.5 for Houston before this game, before the injury and before Game 5 ended. So you could say that the KD injury was worth about 4 points, is what they're saying right now.
So it's 7.5, yeah.
Yeah. So Ben, you just mentioned that you maybe might tie in the money line to something. Is that kind of how you're looking at it for Game 6?
Yeah. Another game where Houston. I'll tell you what. I was shocked it was that high. To be honest, I thought they might come in maybe where it opened 4.5, 5. I think they're the clear favorite at home, but man, that's a big number. It's still a fantastic Warriors team. It's not. I don't feel bad for them at all. They still have an embarrassment of riches. Having said that, the depth of them is an issue, and not having KD in itself is a problem, but they can't be running, Iguodala and these guys 35, 40 minutes, even though you get a day, but it's not 2-3 days rest, obviously. So I worry about the Warriors' depth. I also worry if they start slow that Steve Kerr will call off the dogs a little earlier than maybe he would. So I think Houston kind of cruises tonight.
Jason, you've been following NBA. Any thoughts on Golden State before I chime in?
Yeah, I've been following my team. Just got knocked out. I'm a Celtics fan, obviously. I'm from the Northeast, from Rhode Island. So, yeah, I mean, that was – I've never seen Kyrie Irving play as bad as he did in 5 straight games. Obviously, we won Game 1, but he didn't even play that well. Al Horford played like an all-star there and played better than Giannis. But anyways, I haven't watched every game of the Houston Golden State. I did catch last game when KD got injured.
They're on at 2:00 in the morning. Like these times are brutal. I've been taping. I'm watching them in the morning.
West Coast, fellas. That's the reason. Another reason to move to the West Coast.
That, the weather, probably a couple other reasons. Anyways, so yeah, obviously, KD's what, the 4th best player in the world, 3rd, maybe the best if you talk to somebody. So obviously, obviously, it's going to affect the series. It's not just on the offensive end either. He's very good defensively. So, can Steph Curry, score 60 points, or can Klay Thompson, stop shooting golf videos and go play basketball?
Debatable.
Maybe. I don't know if you guys have watched PGA Tour Live in the last couple of days, but he's all over it right now. And maybe. And I also read an article that he's kind of complaining about amount of play time. I can see him leaving. Honestly, I think his contract is up either this year or the end of next year. Yeah, anyways. Yeah, I see Houston getting through this at home, right? If I'm not mistaken, and then they'll go to Golden State. Probably not going to have KD. Has it fully come out?
I think he's ruled out.
Yeah, he's out for the
series. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I think this is maybe the break that Houston needed. To be completely honest with you,
it's just like last year, ironically.
Yeah.
And now there's I will say this: pressure in a way is all on Houston because no excuse now. Rightfully so. They blamed everything on the Chris Paul injury. Well, now you have your chance. You're healthy. They're not. You should, if you're the better team, you should have no problem winning tonight, and then you have as good a chance as you'll ever have to knock them off.
You guys ready for my hot take?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's my hot take.
Okay.
Blame me all you want, and I probably will if this doesn't work out. But
better team.
Golden State wins tomorrow, or tonight. Sorry.
Tonight, yeah, tonight.
Okay.
I believe there's always been a lot of negativity with KD, and I have a pretty good feeling that when he left the game, that there's all of a sudden this galvanizing effort by Steph and Draymond. I think specifically, I think there's kind of just some bad blood that's appeared between all of these guys, and a lot of it is the speculation about KD leaving, and a lot of this is it's not quite conspiracy theories. I think a lot of it is legitimate and backed up with people's info, but it really seems like he's leaving, and I think this in some regards kind of lightens the pressure on Golden State and lets Steph and Clay. I mean, Steph and Clay have not been playing that well. Draymond's been playing incredibly, and obviously KD has been playing out of his mind as well. But part of me thinks that they just got to win one, and if they can empty the tank and Steph shoots better than he has been, I think they can win Game 6. I don't think they want it to go 7, but I definitely like them plus the points. I'm probably going to bet the money line as well.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I'll say this: I did think in an in-game situation there is something to that where it kind of galvanizes, but I worry a little bit just about where the Warriors are at stamina-wise. There's a lot of pressure on the guards now. Steph, he clearly is more effective without KD, but he has to play well now. He can't early in that game, he had a couple, I think he was like 2 for 8 and they were up 15. Like that will not be happening. If Steph has a huge game, definitely live. But man, if they struggle, that I just don't see it anymore.
The depth is my major concern. I think their starting 5 is going to be fine. I think they'll be able to adjust even defensively without KD. Is it ideal? Of course not. He was incredible guarding Harden. They're going to need a great effort out of Iguodala and keep him. I don't want to see him play 40-plus minutes, but he might have to. And
that's the killer.
And that's where you're talking about with Kerr. He will pull the plug. So, there is the chance that they certainly get blown out of the gym and Kerr pulls the dogs and they just get ready for Game 7. I'm certainly prepared for that option to come to fruition.
I assume you're probably going to wait. I could see it ballooning even more because the public's definitely on Houston.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that. And the other last thing I'll say, I also worry about foul trouble with them. This has a feeling of Harden going to the line like 20 times tonight.
He's going to try.
Just super aggressive, and it's just limited depth. I could see a couple guys getting 3 pretty quickly and really putting a strain on the Livingston's, Loonies of the world.
Yeah. One last point that Ben, you mentioned the pressure kind of component of it. I think it's almost harder that Houston is at home. They have all these demons about these terrible playoff exits, Harden completely disappearing. If he gets off to a slow start, and even Chris Paul too. I mean, the two of them, right, have never been to a conference final until last year, I guess was the first time with Chris Paul that he broke through. It can turn kind of quickly, and if Clay and Steph can get into that onslaught, and I can see the pressure kind of getting to them. That's the best case scenario that I play this out and kind of project in my mind how this game plays out if I'm going to win with Golden State on the money line. Is just get off to a quick lead, kind of sustain it into the second quarter, really put the pressure on Houston and just make them uncomfortable.
There is a path. We'll see. It'll be a very interesting, obviously a game I will be watching. I cannot wait.
So tell me, I'm a little novice in the basketball betting. Can you bet so for your example, Jordan, you say either Golden State could keep it close and could win it, or Houston could blow out. Could you bet Houston to win by 25 plus points like you can say in the Super Bowl and the Patriots, or depends on who your bookie is or where you're betting from?
It depends on the site. Some will give you, it's an alternative line basically where you can lay, crazy points and you'll get a crazy, odds.
The rake on that stuff is awful, though. That's the problem.
They're in 20% or whatever.
It's just it's really tough. But they do have that. Like Bovada has a lot of stuff like that and some other sites.
I was just thinking in your scenario, if you're really playing your side and you're betting heavy on Golden State to win, is the other most logical outcome in your mind a Houston blowout? And if so, could you hedge your Golden State bet for much smaller dollar amount and bet on that blowout while also betting Golden State to win?
I mean, you could do it. Like Ben said, there's a lot of juice that gets on those bets. And, I've never really used that strategy. I think in game, you could probably get a decent number and try to middle it or just kind of get off your bet if things are getting out of hand. I mean, there's different strategies you can use. It's just going to be, it would be a pure hedge, I guess. And, it's an option.
The way these teams play, I will say live betting both teams are very apt to have a 15-2 run in the game, even
Yeah.
no matter what. So if you're paying attention and you're in it, you can take a pretty nice position on both. Even when Houston was down, 16 early in that game, it's minimal panic, and then you see it swing at some point. So
Yeah, it seems like almost all the games have had those
big
types of
runs.
things. Golden State gets up to a big lead, they give it up quickly. They make a lot of for a really great all-time team, they make a lot of really stupid plays. Clay throws it away with like 3 seconds left, like almost gets Houston right back in the game in
Yeah, he
game
was out of
5.
bounds too. So
Yeah,
sick.
and was out of bounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say, wasn't he out of bounds somewhere?
Yeah,
But yeah.
that happens. They had their chances.
Houston's had a ton of chances. All right, so obviously everybody's going to be looking to that game, and we'll break it down next week. By next week, we'll know really the full conference final schedule, and we'll talk more about it. We have Jason here, of course, and Ben, our two golf experts. We're going to do a PGA preview and kind of futures breakdown. The PGA Championship, the second major, is next weekend. And since, our shows are on Fridays, I wanted to get into it now while we had a little bit of lead time to talk about it, kind of look at some odds and just talk about, maybe general strategy. So as you guys both know, clearly, they're playing at Bethpage Black, which is up in your neck of the woods, Ben. Super tough course, very long. It's a public course, which is interesting. It's hosted the U.S. Open twice, but never the PGA. So I want to get your thoughts to start off with just kind of the course in general and what kind of golfers typically do well. Is it really just a long hitter, or is there more to it than that? Ben, why don't we start with you? Kind of just talk about the course and what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's challenging. So the first question, and we're going to know more as we get closer to lock, is this, because this isn't a U.S. Open. I'm getting confused myself, and it's going to depend on what they do with the rough. If they grow it out like a U.S. Open, it's going to be brutal, absolutely brutal. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it'll play obviously difficult, but not to that level. So it should be a little more generous to guys who are aggressive off the tee, because being a little off the fairway isn't in fescue, isn't in foot long rough or anything where you're punching out. Other than that, there's a lot of bunkers. It's going to be a challenge. I mean, these major courses are always tough, so we'll see. It's been raining a lot in New York. The course, I would assume, is going to be pretty soft, but at the same time, that affects rollout, and we'll see. So definitely going to be a challenge, but I'm keeping an eye on how they try to make this tournament, because if they do U.S. Open style, over par could easily win, and I don't think we see that.
How about you, Jason? What are your thoughts?
So I've had the pleasure of playing 5 PGA Tour golf courses in my life, and I played out in Kapalua, and trust me, that's an amazing course. I would take Bethpage over any course that I've ever played anywhere ever again. If all I was doing was playing golf, I would play Bethpage every day for the rest of my life if I could. It's golf at its purest form to me. It doesn't matter where you are. If you hit the ball in the rough, you get the lie you should get. If you're in the fairway, you get the lie you should. If a putt's supposed to break left, it breaks left. It's just golf the way that it's meant to be. As you mentioned, it's a public golf course. So who normally wins here? Well, if you look at the Barclays, which is more than likely how it's going to be set up. The Barclays is a tournament, a playoff event normally, and it's going to rotate. It rotates through Bethpage. It rotates from other courses in the New York area. But what's interesting is that when we talk about growing out the rough standard length there is already long. I mean, you hit it in there right now. Just if a public person goes up and hits it in there, they're going to struggle to get it out. First hole, second hole, doesn't matter what hole. They're going to have, obviously it's a little longer in certain spots, but if you got 190 plus into these greens in the rough, forget about stopping it on it. Forget about even getting it really that close. You're going to need to hit the fairway here, even with as soft as the course is going to play. It's rained something like 30 out of the last 40 days up in your neck of the woods, Ben. I mean, I would be so depressed if I was you. I would literally –
I like the rain. Don't bother me.
So. I wouldn't be able to come on the show. I would literally be in a
puddle.
Yep.
This is what you got.
Anyways, that's going to change the course significantly to the point where – now, granted, the way Bethpage is set up, you can't run balls into these greens anyway, but now you're really not going to be able to. You're going to need to fly it all the way there. The greens are going to be soft. The course plays, 7,600 yards anyway, maybe a little longer. It's going to play like 8,000 yards with how soft it's going to be.
Wow.
They're going to be forced to hit drivers. The one thing that I will bring up about the scoring average, and I think this is really important for when you're comparing Barclays to this year. The 7th hole is a par 5 during the Barclays. It's a 540 yarder, little uphill, great hole. I hit 2 of the best shots of my life and snuck it onto the green. These guys are going to have to play it as a par 4 this week. That's significant because it goes from one of the easiest holes on the course, playing under par, to probably playing over par in one of the harder holes on the course. We're talking about a 2 over probably scoring average next week. We're probably talking about a 4 over cut. So it's going to be a single-digit winner, which the PGA Championship has played at the last couple of years.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned something that I was looking at is just how long the course is, and there's 3 par 4s. So the one that you mentioned is one of the 3, but there's 2 other par 4s that are going to play over 500 yards, which as an amateur golfer just seems insane, and even for the pros, right? I mean, it's going to score, like you're saying, it's going to be really high scoring holes. I mean, the scoring average on those is going to be brutal.
Yeah, what numbers are those? So you got the scorecard in front of you? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and
I don't have the scorecard. I think it was 10 was one of them. I don't have it in front of me. I could pull it up.
Yeah, it's I know it's 7, it's 10, and 10 is so hard. So funny story about 10 is that they had to the walkways from the tee box to the fairway if there's a bunch of rough in the middle. So that's called the Hogan fairway, and the reason for that is because when they played Bethpage so long ago, Hogan couldn't carry from the back tees over the fairway and said, "Hey, this is not fair to me." So they would cut that strip 4 yards wide, and he'd hit it. I mean, that's how good he was. But that's where it comes from. This 10th hole is so hard. I can't even explain it to you. And then there's when you go to the par 5, 13, that's over 600 yards. So it's not like you even get a break on the par 5. That's the beauty of this golf course. It gives you absolutely no breaks, and it's everything in front of you. It's not like it's hitting blind shots every which way. There are a few blind shots, but not that many.
So I mentioned that the U.S. Open was there twice in 2002 and in 2009, and in 2002, how's this for a segue, guys? It was won by a guy named Eldrick. I think his name's Tiger. Tiger Woods won here in 2002 at the Open. So everybody's obviously talking about him because of the Masters and his win, his 15th major. He hasn't played since the Masters. He's the favorite going into this tournament, PGA next weekend. He's not playing this weekend, like I said. Is it possible that he wins again? I mean, obviously it's possible, but I mean, there's no way we can bet him to win, right?
Well, let's say this: he's the odds leader, right? I mean, so certainly the Vegas thinks he can win again. I think I personally, he definitely can, but at 8-1, I mean, do we really want to be betting that?
No, the answer to that is no. Don't bet that. Doesn't mean he can't win, of course, but
right,
for sure.
His true, I believe his true odds are more in the 15-1 ish kind of range, which is it's wide open. It's just I would never lay that number with Tiger.
When you have the top, so this will be the first time ever, if there's no withdraws, that we're going to have every single one of the top 100 players in the world playing here, 1 to 100. It's pretty incredible. Definitely will be the strongest field ever assembled if it stays that way, which is great. There should be nobody that single digits to 1 to win. Yeah. I don't care. I understand it's Tiger Woods, but we're not talking about 2002 Tiger Woods. We're talking about 2019 versus way better talent. It's just too short for me. You can't have somebody like Rory McIlroy be 12-1, who's already won the Players this year, and have Tiger 8-1. I know he's just coming off the Masters win, but this is more of a public. They know that he's going to be bet at any price.
Yeah, the books are shading those numbers because they're going to get the most action on Tiger.
And they got crushed at the Masters for putting him out at 16-1, which was probably a little too long, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so this is clearly a reaction to the name brand, to him winning the Masters. Just the public nature of people betting, favorites to win a golf tournament. Obviously his true odds are so much worse than 8-1. Ben, you said like 15, maybe that's closer to the true odds. Who knows? Like you said, the field is stacked, and it's wide open. One thing I want to mention though, while we're talking about Tiger, is that we're going to do a promotion through our Awesemo Golf Twitter handle, which is at Awesemo Golf, revolving around Tiger. So we're giving away a free month of All Access, which is valued at $69.99. Not a bad deal. All you have to do is guess his final score at the PGA. That's on Sunday, assuming he makes the cut. Closest guest is going to win. If there's any sort of tie, I think we'll do a draw and you'll win a free week regardless. But make sure to check out our Twitter, follow the Awesemo Golf Twitter handle. We'll promote it certainly throughout the week, but just wanted to mention that, referring to Tiger. Why don't we talk about Koepka here real quickly? He's the defending champ. His odds as of right now to win the tournament are 12-1, putting him at like the fourth favorite of the tournament. What do you guys think about Brooks coming in? Obviously, he had a great run at the Masters. His track record, his results over the last, 10 majors. I mean, it's an incredible accomplishment.
Insane. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. He's playing this week, so we get a really good picture of where his game is. Now, the two golf courses are obviously quite different, but what we're going to see is actually similar conditions. It's super soft out there at the AT&T Byron Nelson right now. Sung Kang is going crazy right now, and he needs to calm down.
He really is. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's quite disturbing. And Chalk, our Rafa Cabrera Bello, who we're going to see next week, just hold out from the middle of the fairway, which is just disgusting as well.
Also disturbing, yep.
Anyways, passing all that, he looked really good yesterday. He looks in total command of his drives. He didn't putt all that well, and made some bogeys that I don't expect him to make next week. So with that being said, 12-1, this is where I'd start my betting card. 8-1 is too short. 12-1 is okay, because if he comes out to a first-round lead, he'll be 5-1. He'll be half of that. So the course should set up really, really well for him. I'm not going to lie. He's an extremely long hitter. He's a good long iron player. He hits the ball so high. And as I mentioned in the first part, I don't like to look at apex height. I think it's a really silly kind of statistic, to be completely honest with you. However, he's a high ball hitter, so the soft conditions, like for Rory McIlroy, same exact thing. Soft conditions will aid these guys, Rory and Brooks specifically.
So there's a few other guys I want to ask you both about, but I'll open it up first. So Ben, who are some guys, some of the favorites and or kind of a middle tier? Is there anybody, one or two guys who's jumping out to you, a week ahead of time as particular like good value?
So for me, I'm a little more apt to negate the top 5-6 guys and go to the next tier, starting with Rahm. So he obviously has the length to handle any type of course. I worry if it's absolutely brutal, but I'm banking that it's not. I don't want him in a course where he's going to be frustrated and Rahm-like, but low key, he's an incredible player, but I think people are maybe overlooking how good he's playing. Was right there at the Players, had an awful Sunday, played well at the Masters, won the team event, and I think his game suits this course. So I see him, roughly around 20-1 out there. Him, Bryson, Ricky, that range of guys, I think is where I'm going to be most interested in. Even Justin Rose, who obviously burnt everyone at the Masters, responds at Wells Fargo. He's completely fine. It was just an outlier. Doesn't help that I picked him to win, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. He's another guy that his odds, unlike Tiger, I think are being shaded the wrong way just based on a complete fluke missing the cut at the Masters.
Yeah, and those are always the best opportunities, right? You want to take advantage of kind of that reverse, perception, and Rose is a prime example of that. He burned me as well in the Masters, and I'd like to kind of get back on him too. Jason, how about you in kind of this tier, whether it's one of the top 4 or 5 or maybe in this middle tier, some of the guys that Ben mentioned?
Yeah, I'll take the same kind of path that you guys are with Justin Rose and say Paul Casey at 40-1 kind of gives you something similar. He bounced back with a nice start last week at Wells Fargo, which is a long par 71, and now Bethpage is going to be a par 70, but it's a similar style course. It was relatively wet there too. So I think that Paul Casey at 40-1 gives you similar type upside. Now, he's never won a major before, but he has had a couple of wins in the last 2 years. And it had been quite a while since we had seen one of those. So I think he's trending in the right direction at 40-1. That's probably a little bit longer than you wanted me to go, but Ricky's time will come. I don't know if Bethpage is the right course for him to do that. I would maybe want somebody at a tad longer, like Bryson at 28-1, who's has gotten out of form a little bit. But if this was, if the PGA was played in February, he would have been 15-1.
Yep.
So I know that he's not in great form, but when we look at it from a pure odds perspective, 28-1 for Bryson DeChambeau, people would have been jumping at that over the last summer into the fall. So I think maybe a little too early, but you never know. Bryson could pop up, and it could be his type of week, and he'll get the spritzers out on the range, and he'll be ready to hit the ball in wet conditions.
Yeah, one name that I had a couple names that I want to certainly bring up to you guys. One is Cantlay, because he can really strike the ball really well and really pristinely. I think Jason, you're a pretty big fan of Patrick Cantlay.
That's my boy. Yeah, that's my boy.
I'm seeing him 48-1 right now. Are those odds just too long for him?
It was 60 when it first came out, and I jumped on it right away. So it's moved to 45 on my book now, where I see it. 48 where you see it. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He kind of popped out of nowhere for some people in the Masters, but yeah, this is his course. I mean,
yeah,
he's long, he's straight, he loves to hit a draw. This, like I said earlier, this course is right in front of you, so he can move that. I love Patrick Cantlay at 45-1. He's going to be a main focus for me at this point. Even with the odds moving down, I think that will be cut in half if he comes out with a good first round and is close to the lead.
I'm sure. Yeah, even more maybe. How about you, Ben? What do you think about him? Or you want to start looking at kind of this middle to even kind of long shot tier? If there's any other names that jump out to you?
So not surprisingly, we haven't seen him since the Masters. He's not a guy that plays a ton. Really good driver of the ball. What my whole strategy with a week like this is to plan for different scenarios. So again, if the course is brutal, I don't like Cantlay nearly as much. If scrambling is a premium, guys like Ricky who can grind it out, I'm a little more apt to go to. But if it's where premium on ball striking, premium on gaining off the tee, guys like him, guys like Xander, Bryson, those type of good drivers. But I'll throw one more in, same range, is Sergio, who big range of outcomes, obviously. We've seen him burn people time and time again, but another really aggressive driver, can get it out there, played well at Wells Fargo, and just kind of under the radar. So I know he broke through with his one at the Masters, but he's burned a lot of people here and there, and I don't think his odds truly reflect the win equity. He's got a huge risk. I trust Cantlay more in a DraftKings setting, I'd say. Price is different issue, but I think Sergio has some massive upside, and I'm definitely looking at him around 50-1.
Yeah, Sergio was somebody that I was looking at too, and you guys are both younger than me. I don't know if you remember or ever read about this story of Sergio essentially getting frustrated with the crowd at a tournament and starting flicking everyone off. You guys remember this?
In New York. Oh yeah,
it was Bethpage.
Oh yeah. Well, it might have been Shinnecock, but I'm pretty sure it was Bethpage. Anyways,
well, I'm pretty sure it was Bethpage, at least from when I was reading about it the other day. And that was in the O2 Open when it was him and Tiger in the final group on Sunday, and everyone was rooting for Tiger.
Everybody, yeah.
And as you guys remember, and Sergio kind of lost it. Still ended up playing pretty well, but I really like Sergio here, and then I wonder if there's kind of this, I don't want to this FU kind of attitude to him, and maybe it would help him. I don't know.
What a surprise, Sergio Garcia, doing something against the grain, if you will. Yeah, Ben, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, it's a guy that, like I said, I never have doubted the talent. Obviously, he was one of the best to not win a major. Then he broke through. I just don't think it's as simple as this. I think his win equity is higher than those type of odds.
Yeah,
he's a world-class player. Can lean on off the tee game. And if he gets going, he's going to be in it. Now, again, risk reward, but in a binary bet like this, you don't care if he gets cut, in the sense of that's the same as coming in third. You're looking for a guy to win the tournament. So different than DraftKings, different than DFS purposes.
Yeah, you hit on it right there. The analysis is so different than in your DFS perspective, because second or cut, it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, you just need somebody with the variance to win this kind of tournament and have that ceiling. And certainly Sergio does. So you mentioned a couple times kind of knowing how the course is playing. What do you guys think? Are we going to have a pretty good sense, on, by Wednesday, at least as to how the rough is looking, and I guess as to the weather? I mean, can we really glean a lot by Wednesday before, making these kind of future bets?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, me and Jason are producing a ton of content over on the site. Our shows are going to hit upon that, from practice rounds. Guys, I'm sure will be heading up in droves to play, and I expect to alter some things. We saw, just to bring it back to Aaron Hills a couple years ago now, everyone was worried about the fescue. Then they cut the fescue, and then you realized that the fairways were like 100 yards wide. You couldn't even go in it if you tried. So we're going to learn some information, and I think if you apply that quickly, you can get better numbers than are out there based on some new information.
Yeah. For me on my side, honestly, I don't think that we're going to get much different variation in terms of the course setup than what we know right now. And the reason is because it's rained so much. It's not like, oh, it rained yesterday and that was the first time it had rained in 14 days. No, it's the course is soaked. The turf is soaked. There's little to no way that by the time 5 days from now comes around, it's not going to be wet out there. The superintendent, who's been there for 40 years, said he's never seen weather like it before. And it's not like it's super bad. It's just wet. So I don't think that's going to change, which means that the rough, they're probably not going to cut it to the point where it's any different than, like I said, I'm standing up there in the first tee as a public golfer going to play the course, which means 2 inches, 2¼ inches in certain spots. You won't be able to find it because it'll be wet. But off the fairway, 5 yards off the fairway, you'll be able to find it, but you're looking at scrambling like Ben mentioned. If you're hitting fairways, you're a high ball hitter, I think you'll have some opportunities to score. And that's why I think we're going to see close to 10 under. I don't think we're going to see like an over par or anything like that, because the greens are going to play easier due to the fact that they're softer. We know that. It's if you're going to lose distance on the fairways, you're also going to gain some of the ability to control the shot on the green when you land it. So there's that give and take. Overall, though, I don't think we're going to – for me, I don't think we're going to change too much in terms of setup. Now, is my players going to change due to the interviews that they talk about the course? Yeah. If some people, struggle in these conditions, they're going to tell you about it, and you'll learn about it pretty quickly. That's why for majors, I always watch as much interviews as possible. They'll tell you right away if they like the style or not.
Yeah, so I think, certainly as it builds up next week, we'll get a lot more information. And, you guys have both produced a ton of content on the site, and everybody should be subscribing to get all this incredible golf content that we have. On the written side, certainly projections, ownership, all that stuff is incredibly valuable and, equally applicable, in my mind, in the sports betting world, and just kind of seeing where value lies, and just kind of getting both your thoughts on, who looks good going into the tournament, who is some long shots, those kind of analysis that you guys are doing. So, quick plug for you guys.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing. The first article of the week that we come out with is the first cut. It's a free article for everybody to come. I'll have that produced by the end of the day today. I actually lost my computer charger last night, so I couldn't do it. But anyways, I found it. We're here. It'll be out there by the end of the day. That's for everybody. It goes into what the winners have done here in the past 5 years statistically, what it's taken to win on a course like this. It goes over the field. It goes over the course. Because I've played it, I'm going to give a hole-by-hole description of just, the way I played it, the way that it looked to me on the tee. So that's free, and that's for everybody, not just DFS sports bettors. I don't even go into DraftKings at all or FanDuel. So if you don't even play that, you're just a bettor, certainly can glean a lot from the article. Like I said, it's free. It'll also give you an input, a look into what Ben and I do all week, and how we best try and prepare all of the members and subscribers to put themselves in the best position to win.
Yeah, that's a great point, and we can put a link to that piece of content, certainly in the description of the show, and in the comments, because it is a free resource. It's an incredible kind of starting point into the analysis of getting into the tournament next week. Okay, so I know everybody wants to know, that crazy long shot that's going to give you a sweat to kind of win that big money. So tell us, let's start with you, Ben. Who's a long shot that you're looking at that, look, all we need is a sweat, right? We want to have a chance to cash these in. And, when you're talking about these huge, underdogs, that's all you can really ask for. So is there one or two names jumping out to you, Ben?
Kyle Stanley, my old man Kyle Stanley, who has had an awful year, found a little form, played well at the Masters, played really well at the Wells Fargo. He was in that tournament, came up a little short, but he is starting to find his old game. And again, it's as simple as this: if he had had a better year, we would see him, I'd say, more in the 50 to 75 to 1 range, and I see him in the 125 to 1 range. So, is he going to win? Probably not, but this is a guy that is a talent. He's a winner on tour, has the ball striking ability to maybe hang around for a bit and give you a sweat.
I like that. How about you, Jason? Who's jumping out to you?
Yeah, it's so funny. I had a little inclination that Ben was going to go to Kyle Stanley there. So a guy that I've won a lot of money on this year is Eddie Pepperell. I don't want to say this, but I think the course might be a little too long for him to win on. He's 150 to 1, and obviously Las Vegas thinks kind of as similar to me with Eddie Pep because he's played better than 150 to 1 this year. I mean, third at the Players could have burned the books pretty bad there. Anyways, the one that I'm looking at is Aaron Wise, 125 to 1. A couple of top 20s in a row, playing this week as the defending champion out in Texas. He's just a long hitter. I don't think he can win this golf. He's not ready to win a major, that's for darn sure. But Thomas Pieters, 150 to 1. He's actually came in the top 10 of a couple of majors. So he's had a bad year. He's also playing this week. Playing good, looks like he's 4 under for the day or somewhere in that range. So maybe Thomas Pieters instead of Aaron Wise. It's a toss-up between those two, but maybe for an each-way bet, I would look at those guys.
All right, one name that I want to ask you guys both about is Keegan Bradley, which I'm seeing at 160 to 1. Long hitter, not the best putter. Has won the PGA before. It's been a long time. I think it's been 9 or 10 years. But what do you think about his chances?
I can't speak about Keegan anymore.
Keegan, my native New Englander on tour. Yeah, this one's really tough because we know if he's all there, he's probably got the game to compete at a top 10 wise. Honestly, if you do DraftKings and betting or a daily and betting, I would say play him in daily because he makes a ton of birdies, but he makes a ton of bogeys. So points wise for daily fantasy sports, he's a better play there. The problem with him is he can come, if you look like at his Masters, I think he came 35th, but he put up 70 DraftKings points. So that's a good return for a guy that was 7K, but it's a 35th is not going to win you any money. So yeah. I think you're probably burning money there. I think I'd rather turn you to other. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't think he can come top 10 though. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, he's
fair enough.
Got a major. I'll say this about Keegan. He's an incredible world-class ball striker. He's hung around in tough fields. Should have took down a FedEx. Not should have. Could have took down a FedEx Cup event last year. And not only did he not do it, he shot, I think, like 80 something in the final round. I remember it vividly when Bryson won. But you can do worse. I will say when I look to these guys, you want a window into something, whether it's they've been there before and won, they have a skill set that's unique. And Keegan does have that. Now, he can't putt, but you're not going to find guys that check every box when you're looking at, triple-digit odds. So at least he's got something.
A great point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not looking for a diamond in the rough here at 160 to 1, but just being there before, certainly has some value in my mind, and him being able to strike the ball pretty well, and with this long course, I don't know. Yeah, I probably won't be looking at him any further, but I just wanted to bring him up to you guys.
That's the thing with Keegan. You have to factor in it's 160 to 1, but what does it do to your overall health and your long-term survival on the earth? Because that guy, he does things in brutal. For going full Keegan is a golf term, and it's a real thing.
It really is, though.
Yeah, I do value kind of my lifestyle and
save yourself. This is
the cost of it's just too high with him.
Yeah,
can't take that pain. All right, guys. So final thoughts. I mean, we're a week out here. We've got golf on obviously this weekend, and we'll learn a lot about what the players are doing this weekend going into next week. But Ben, kind of what are your final thoughts? As it stands today, Friday. Almost a full week before the tournament.
For me, and obviously things can always change, but I don't see a huge difference between that top tier of like Tiger Brooks, DJ style, and the next tier of like the Rose, Rahm, Rickies of the world. So my plan right now is to take the longer odds, the savings and DraftKings style things, and target them, because I think it's a very fine line of how the books price these guys. They're all the best players in the world, and I'm going to really let other people take those shorter odds. I would be more apt to take, a guy in the mid-20s. I think they're very live to do some damage here.
Yeah. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna be skipping out on the top guys, betting on them at this point, unless I am so convinced that an NBA read where I can parlay Tiger and somebody winning, the Western Conference or the NBA Finals. But honestly, I won't be betting any of those guys outright unless I'm parlaying them. I just think that 8 or even 10 to 1's a little short. McIlroy, maybe. This will come down for me is if I end up on McIlroy on DraftKings and not on Brooks on DraftKings, which I'm opposite that right now, I'll probably bet the other because they're in that same range. And I think that if I don't get both of them on DraftKings, which is very hard to, I'm going to have to hedge, and that'll be the way that I hedge. I'll probably, like I said, I'll probably fade the Tiger and Dustin in betting because you can't really hedge yourself anyway. Maybe I'll throw one on either Rory or Brooks and then do exactly what Ben said, go down to that next range.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to a lot of content on the site, and obviously the videos previewing the tournament will be next week, and we'll have a ton of stuff that we're going to talk about further. And then certainly on our show next week, we'll kind of see where it's at and try and look at some in tournament value, certain matchups and futures during the tournament. Jason, I'm not sure if you watch Game of Thrones, but the last few weeks we've been doing a few minutes at the end here, breaking down Game of Thrones odds. Crazy that there's markets for Game of Thrones, but like we talk about, you can.
It seems like insider trading could be really bad. I mean, just as bad as the stock market. I mean, geez, if one writer tells his dog and his dog tells the other dog, it could go quick. But yeah, I mean, I do not want. I've never even seen an episode. I've never even seen 5 minutes. I've never even seen 60 seconds.
Interesting.
So all I know is that Iron Man's kids are in it, I guess. Is that the deal?
I have no idea what that means.
Is that I don't even his actual kids?
I don't know, right? I mean, Iron Man's name is Stark. Isn't there a girl named Stark?
I didn't know that. I'm not I'm out of the superhero look.
Yeah, his name is Tony Stark. So
Tony Stark. There you
that's
go.
all I got for you. That's all I got for you on Game of Thrones. So I'll let you guys hash that out. But I'll join you guys next Friday for some in play stuff. And that'll be fun. Awesome. Always can get some good odds. So we'll see you guys next week and look for the contents on the golf starting today.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jason, for joining us, and we'll reach out next week and we'll see where we're at.
See you guys.
See you. All right, Ben. 2 minutes. We're going to talk through spoiler alerts. The latest episode of Game of Thrones and the current odds. There's always been this thought that there was inside information and that kind of would swing the markets, but I don't think that has happened, at least as of yet. I think maybe going into the last episode, that might happen, or it might come off the board.
Yeah, you can't get. I mean, the thing about these props, the reason they do it is because you can't get real volume down.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you had that information, but neither here nor there.
Exactly.
Obviously, it's gearing up for some craziness. Daenerys seems more and more in a dicey at best situation.
Yeah.
I'm now thinking that the window for her to actually get through this and sit atop solo is, I almost think, 0 at this point. What do you think? Are you still riding on your girl here?
I wouldn't say 0. I can still envision a path for her to get there with a lot of carnage and kind of this apocalyptic ending that I think might happen.
Let me ask you this. Do you think there's any chance she gets there and she's still quote unquote good? Because the only path I think she has is she's the Mad Queen.
Agreed.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I think the only chance would be if it was her and John together, and I don't see that happening given kind of the distance between them and the tension that, they've been really ramping up these last couple of weeks. And the whole thing has accelerated so fast. I certainly have mixed feelings, and I had some issues with the episode, and we don't need to go into that necessarily. I mean, we could definitely do a standalone show for a solid hour breaking down last week's episode.
Obviously this is going to be the turning point. Someone major is going down. We'll see. I had some problems with the episode as well, but Bran is still the wild card for me because it's like I have no clue how important he is he the most important guy? Is he just
Yeah.
not even going to be in the story anymore? That's the one I don't really know what to do with.
He's the true wild card. And the interesting thing to me is that from what I saw, and these odds kind of go all over the place just because they're on different sites, but it seems like Bran is actually the favorite now. I think he might have been last week, but he's like even money to be there at the end, and I just don't see that. I don't know in what capacity he is the ruler at the end of this show. Like maybe there's just nobody left
By
like,
default. Yeah, I mean,
I don't see it. I think Sansa would be there before he would be personally.
Sansa's interesting. She's certainly like gaining some steam.
Yeah,
But
a lot of steam behind that Sansa.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can. I'd be happy to keep talking about it. I'm not sure how long we could possibly keep going on this show, but I think once it's over, you and I will start our own series. We'll break down every episode.
From the beginning, we'll branch out. That sounds like a plan. After I win all the money in the golf,
that's right.
I'll just do that.
Yeah, when we're on our yachts, we can break down every episode and live the life.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, good show today. Good chatting. We'll catch up with you next week. We'll look for a lot of golf content coming. Certainly, the Preakness is also next weekend. NBA playoffs, as we talk about. There's just so much going on, and looking forward to talking about it more next week.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Take care, everyone.